Get right game. I don't care. The Packers have to beat the New York Giants on Sunday, and the offense has to look better. It's a crossover Thursday. Locked on Packers, Locked on Giants. Let's go.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast. iTunes, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and now part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network. That's not now, right? That's always been the case. We've always been part of the Locked On Podcast Network, but we're now number one. This is, of course, as always, the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Our crossover Thursday, presented by our friends at PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. A Locked On Packers, Locked On Giants crossover. Me, Patricia Traina, no Jackson Dart. It's Jameis Winston. Let's get into it right now.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, Giant fans and Packer fans. My name is Patricia Traina. I am the host of Locked On Giants. He is Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers, and we're here for Crossover Thursday, Locked On Giants, Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, doesn't that sound great, Pete?
Sounds great to me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. On today's show, Crossover Thursday, we're going to get you ready with everything you need to know about this Sunday's Giants-Packers game, 1 o'clock MetLife Stadium. And we're going to kick things off with the key storylines. And Pete, we've got a lot to talk about for sure.
Yeah.
Then we're going to talk about the key matchups and what each team needs to do to pull out a victory. So, Pete, let's just jump right in. I mean, you're the visiting team. What's going on in the land of the Cheeseheads?
Has anything happened lately with the Cheeseheads? Anything going on, like national game where the offense didn't show up? Anything like that happening? No, I can't think of anything. The offense right now, and Giants fans are probably not deep on Packers Twitter or on Packers Reddit or Packers Facebook or anything like that. The Packer fans want Matt LaFleur out. And I'm sure there are Giants fans that were like, hey, over here, we'll take him. Please we haven't had a coach as good as Matt LaFleur since at least Tom Coughlin. And so like, I try and remind Packer fans of that. Like, Matt LaFleur's a really good coach. Everyone relax a little bit, please. But coming into this game, this is why this is the big storyline, is the offense has just not looked like the offense we're used to seeing in Green Bay. And I'm not even talking about Aaron Rodgers, Patricia. I'm talking about Jordan Love. This was a top 10 offense in 2023. It was a top 10 offense in 2024. It's a top 10 offense right now. It just doesn't feel like one. And that's part of the problem. They're inconsistent. They're a high variance team. They want to hunt shot plays, but their down to down consistency is just not there. And lately, they've not been hitting the shot plays either. And so that has taken everything away from this offense. This offense is pretty toothless right now. 2 games ago, Jordan Love set a Packers franchise record with 20 straight completions, tied a franchise record against Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. And it was like, okay, he's an MVP candidate. And over the last 2 weeks, the offense has been, frankly, a wet fart. And so if they want to win games, if they want to beat even the New York Giants without a coach and without their starting quarterback, the offense is going to have to be better than that here moving forward. You are lucky that you don't have anything to talk about all week. You have no new things to talk about, no interesting storylines, right? You know, anything like that. So Jackson Dart is not going to play. It sounds like, right? And Mike Kafka, who, am I crazy to think this could potentially be an upgrade for the Giants? Like, Mike Kafka was getting head coaching opportunities in terms of interviews already. Like, he was going to be one of the most sought after candidates on the market. Am I crazy to think they could be better with maybe not right away, but like eventually? Like, this could be one of the rare, the interim gets promoted and everyone goes, this was, of course, the move.
Well, you better hope so, because, you know, a lot of people had their eye on your Packers defensive coordinator as a future head coach. But yeah, I mean, the land of the Giants, I mean, yeah, kind of a quiet week, right? I mean, I've been going nonstop. Mike Kafka
Yeah.
in as interim head coach. And, look, a lot of people are expecting, all these fancy changes and whatnot. They're going to be subtle at first. But, one of the good things about having a new head coach and I say this about, even if this was the start of the season, sometimes you can catch teams off guard. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not going to totally change the offense. They're not going to totally change the defense. Unfortunately, Shane Bowen is still the defensive coordinator, so that's not going to change all that much. But little tweaks here and there could potentially, catch a team off guard because now it's like, okay, what are the tendencies and the trends that maybe Mike Kafka, the head coach, does differently than Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator / play caller. And to add to that, the national treasure that is known as Jameis Winston is going to be the starting quarterback this week. Finally, somebody listened to me. I have been screaming for this for the longest time. I said, look, no disrespect to Russell Wilson, really nice guy. He and I had a nice little chat today in the Giants locker room. But Jameis Winston, a better fit for what the Giants have done with Jackson Dart. Russell Wilson is just not a fit for, how they tweaked the offense initially when they brought in Jackson Dart. So the national treasure known as Jameis Winston, I mean, you never know what you're going to get from him, which is pretty, scary at times, but the guy can sling it. He can move. He can play that offense. I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to play it as well as Jackson Dart has, but he can give them a chance to win. And, it's a bunch of newness now that the Packers have to deal with. Jameis Winston, there's film on him, yes, but there's no film on him in this particular system.
Right.
It's going to be kind of interesting to see how the Packers adjust.
Well, maybe Jeff Hafley uses this opportunity to interview for the Giants head coaching job with another splendid game plan, because I don't know if you caught this, Patricia, but Jalen Hurts on Wednesday said the Packers have the best defense that he's faced this season. They played the Broncos. They played the Rams, who are the number one defense in the NFL by a lot of metrics right now. So that is the test that Jameis has in front of him. But the thing that Jameis we know is going to do is he will have no conscience. He will throw the ball, and he will throw the ball, and he will throw the ball into coverage. He will throw the ball deep. He will create some variance. Now, the problem for the Giants, and we can get into this with the matchups, is Malik Neighbors is out. Cam Scatterbo is out. And so it's like, okay, who is the ball going to? Now, Jackson Dart was finding success throwing the ball to, backup tight ends. And if one of the backup tight ends could have caught the ball in the end zone, maybe they win that game, even with Jackson Dart going down. I mean, I was really impressed watching this offense work with Dart against the Bears. But part of that was Dart is a fearless guy, like Jameis is, but Dart is a much better athlete. He made a number of plays in that game with his legs. I feel like that's something that whoever the next coach for the Giants is, they have something in Jackson Dart, but they need to say, dude, you need to ratchet it back like 25% on taking off and taking these hits. Like we get it. You're tough. We get it. You have swagger. Like you have ultimate belief in your abilities. I love that in a player. You got to chill on some of these hits that you're taking because we need you on the field. And that was something Baker Mayfield had to learn. Like Baker Mayfield has become one of the best scramblers in the NFL. Early on, he trusted his athleticism too much. He just is not as good an athlete as he thought he was. And I feel like Dart, if he can learn that same lesson, I know he's not playing this weekend, but I've been so impressed by what he's brought to this team, and losing that, it sucks. I was really excited to see him.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were, because really Jackson Dart, the only reason to tune in these days with, for the Giants. Now, again,
Cam Scatterbo would have been the other reason, and he's hurt too.
Scatterbo, right? Malik Neighbors, but two out of right now the Giant fans have,
they're
Jameis
0 for 3
Winston to look forward to, and Jameis Winston, like I said, he could be a fun player to watch. He could also be a frustrating player to watch for sure.
If you're not the coach, he's a fun player to watch.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's going to be, to me, I think another, sub storyline for the Giants is the defense. And we'll get into matchups, obviously, but the guy that I thought would get fired first, Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, he's still here, still the same system, still at the same everything. But this time, Mike Kafka, the interim head coach, is a little bit more involved now, in meetings that maybe he wasn't involved with before. And he's going to sit down and say, hey, here's what I like. Here's what I don't like. How about we tweak things a little bit? And who knows, maybe things will be a little different for that Giants defense.
Yeah, I'm not optimistic. I mean, I see the personnel, and the personnel is the problem, and we can get into that in the matchups. But you can only pull the levers a little bit, right? Like, okay, so I want us to play more man coverage, or I want us to play less man coverage, or I want us to blitz more, or I want us to play heavy boxes more. Your players are still the players, and I think ultimately that's the deal. I think you have a greater advantage with a new staff on offense, because it's like, okay, we don't really know what Mike Kafka wants to do. Again, you can only change it so much. It's still going to be the same base concepts. We know what those are going to be from the Giants. It's more about, okay, we don't know what the levers are going to look like. Is he just, with Jameis, is he going to throw the ball 65, 70% of the time because the run game is not going to be there? Maybe. And so how do you prepare for that? I think that makes this a fascinating week, especially when we know the dead cat bounce is real with a fired coach. Teams tend to play really well off that first game after they fire their coach. But the Packers desperately need this game, Patricia, because their schedule is brutal to close. 5 division games. They play the Vikings twice, the Bears twice, the Lions on Thanksgiving, and their non-division games after this one, the Broncos and the Ravens. So they need this one in the worst way. So we'll see which momentum side wins out here.
Absolutely. And the Giants could use one as well. All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk about matchups. What matchups do we need to keep an eye on? We'll have that for you right after this. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead time keeps you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. So go on and join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and of course the dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHNFL5 to get 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. This episode of Crossover Thursday is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. The new Stacks feature is a game changer. You can now pick more on, for example, Jackson Dart's passing yards, touchdowns, and rushing yards in the same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves your lineup from a loss. So go on, download the PrizePicks app today and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, everybody, welcome back to Crossover Thursday, Locked on Giants, Locked on Packers, and we want to send a special thank you to our everydayers and, of course, our newcomers. If anybody is watching us for the first time, we appreciate you spending part of your day with us, or if you've made us your first listen of the day, we appreciate that as well. My name is Patricia Traina. I'm the host of Locked on Giants. He is Peter Bukowski, host of Locked on Packers. And Peter, let's talk about matchups. Where do you see the biggest matchups from the Packers perspective?
It's this run defense to me. And they're 32nd in DVOA, which for the uninitiated is efficiency adjusted for schedule. So based on how efficient teams are against this team, based on how they did against other teams, this is the worst run defense in the NFL. There are only 32 teams in the NFL last I checked. So that's pretty bad. And part of that is they can rush the passer. Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter, Brian Burns is playing outside of his mind this season. Like one of the great standalone performances of the year, where it's just like this guy is languishing on a great team or a bad team having a great season. And so I think the Packers right now, much to my dismay, Patricia, have insisted on running the football a ton. And this is not going to be a game by matchup where you go, let's change what we're doing. I really don't think it is. Like, I think this is the game where if you want to be pessimistic about these things, you go, Matt LaFleur is going to learn the wrong lessons from playing the New York Giants on Sunday, because they're going to be able to run the ball, and then that's going to carry over. But I think that what we need to see here is the play action game, and running the ball is the way that you have to do that. You have to set it up that way. So I also think that when you look at this secondary, there's problems. If you can pass protect, there are problems in the secondary. I mean, Deonte Banks, my goodness. We're talking about, and he was someone, Patricia, I loved in the draft. I was really into his talent, his size. The movement skills for a guy that size are rare. He's been, by some charting and some grades, like the worst starting corner in the NFL this year. That's a problem. And so if you can run the ball, that allows you to play action. We saw the Bears get to some big explosive plays off play action eventually on Sunday. And so the run game for me is where I'm looking. I look at the Giants and I go, where do they feel like they can attack? What are the parts of this team? Because Packers defense has been spectacular, or at least was on Monday, certainly. And the offense, is it the pass rush? Like, is that the place where you have to go win this game? Is the pass rush?
That could be one place to start. But, I think from a Giants perspective, got to keep an eye on where is Micah Parsons going to line up?
Yeah, well,
they have him lining up all over the place.
Yeah, they do.
All over the place. So know where he's at. Now, fortunately for the Giants, their two offensive tackles, Andrew Thomas, Jermaine Illuminor, they've been playing really, really well. Illuminor's banged up a little bit. He's got a pectoral injury, but he should be good to go. He played last week. I think he'll be fine. But, Green Bay, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, they do a lot of, fancy stuff with stunts and moving guys around and whatnot, a lot of chess playing, if you will.
Yeah.
So my biggest concern remains the interior of the Giants offensive line. I don't know if they're going to have John Michael Schmitz back, the center. He's dealing with a shin injury. He was limited in Wednesday's practice. Austin Schlottman, who stepped in for him, he was okay. But again, that interior is so probably the weakest link on that offensive line. And against that Packers pass rush led by Micah Parsons, I got concerns.
You are right to have those concerns, no doubt. And the cool thing that Jeff Hafley does with Parsons is, if you have a weak link, he will just line Micah over that guy all day. And Micah Parsons, it's crazy. He's like 6'3", 255. And if you've ever seen him in person, he is like the densest human you've ever seen. He's just thick. Like, he's so strong, and he's built like a wrestler because he was a wrestler growing up. And so that is something that we've seen him do every game, where and they do this cool thing, Patricia, I'm sure you've seen it on tape, and for your fans who haven't watched the Packers much this season or haven't noticed this, Micah will line up directly behind a tackle, a defensive tackle, whether it's in the A gap, the B gap, doesn't matter where. He will line up directly behind him and then decide where he's going to go. Am I going to go inside? Am I going to go outside? And it will mess with protections because you want to slide to Parsons, right? Well, if you have a guy in the A gap and you don't know which direction he's going, how do you slide to Micah Parsons? You can't. And so if he guesses wrong, maybe you have him blocked. If he guesses right, he might not just have one-on-one. He might have an angle and a gap to shoot. And we saw him, I think he had 7 pressures against the Eagles. If you look in the stat sheet, you go to ESPN or whatever, you look in the stat sheet, you will not find him. Did not make a tackle, did not have a pass breakup, did not have a sack. 7 pressures in a game where Jalen Hurts didn't throw the ball that many times. He was extremely disruptive on Monday. And Devontae Wyatt's getting back healthy. Carl Brooks is a nice interior pass rusher. Colby Wooden is playing really well. And they still have Rashawn Gary. They still have Kingsley Enagbare, who's a backup defensive lineman who's playing really well. Both of these teams have really good 4-man fronts who can get after you. And if Jameis is going to have to get the ball out quick, are they going to be able to push the ball down the field would be my big question, because I think you have to do that. This team is not set up to do what, say, the Panthers did and make this a 7-possession game and run. I feel like what the Giants are going to have to do is create shot plays. So if they're going to do that, Is this going to be, are they going to try and find Wan'Dale Robinson? Is this going to be like, we got to scheme up some tight end stuff? Like, how did they, Packers, one of the best teams, not allowing explosives, but Jameis Winston is an explosive quarterback. That's what he seeks. How do they do that in this game?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to do a lot of underneath stuff. You mentioned Wan'Dale Robinson. I expect he's going to probably be a big part of the game. He's been a big part. And then I wonder how much the tight ends are going to factor into the equation. The Giants have found some luck with 12 personnel packages with their tight ends, Daniel Bellinger, Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson was a favorite target of Jackson Dart. But, I'm curious to see which of the receivers or tight ends Jameis Winston has developed that chemistry with. That's a big question mark. We don't get to see the entire practices, so I can't say it's one guy or another. But, they're going to have to take, obviously, what the defense gives them, which is probably going to be the underneath stuff because, as you said, they're very good against the deep ball. So I'm not so sure we're going to see a lot of fireworks from that end. But the important thing here, I think, for Jameis Winston, not only get the ball out of your hand quick, but don't try to force it where it's just not going to happen. And that's where the concern is. We've seen that with Jameis Winston, where he's not afraid to take chances,
He has that track record, unfortunately, if you're the Giants. And so is he the ideal player to play that kind of scheme? I don't think he is. But if you're going to let him throw sail routes and deep overs to tight ends, he's going to make those throws. He's going to say, I believe I can fit this ball in. And if you're the Packers, you have to be ready. Charles Woodson once said, if you catch all the ones the quarterback throws to you, you're going to go all pro as a DB. And I joked on our squad show, someone's going to go all pro this weekend because I think this is what he wants to do. He wants to press. He could throw 4 touchdowns, or he could throw 4 interceptions, or he could do both in a game, right? That's the Jameis Winston experience. And the joke on Packers Twitter is well, of course he's going to walk off the practice squad. Not really, but he's going to walk off from third string and throw for 400 yards against this team. I don't think he's going to do that. But if he threw a couple bombs or hit someone in stride that turned into a 50-yard play, that's not going to surprise me at all, because that's just who Jameis Winston has been in his NFL career. If you're the Packers, you have to limit those and say that can't be a touchdown. You got to tackle well. And then in the red zone, you got to buckle down. And that's where, this team situationally has been very good this year. And so their defense has not created the takeaways that I think that we're used to seeing in Green Bay that they created last year. They've also not created the sacks at as high a rate as you would expect. This team gets pressure at a top 10 rate, but they're middling to below average in sacks. At some point, that worm is going to turn. You get pressure that much, you're going to get some sacks. So can you create a sack fumble in this game? Something like that. And I think that could be key here as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the keys to victory. Locked On Giants, Locked On Packers crossover Thursday. We'll be right back. This show is sponsored by Betterhelp. As the days get shorter and the nights come earlier, it can start to feel a little heavier, especially when life is already packed with work, family, and everything else. This season, it's so important to reach out and check in with friends, family, or even yourself. Just like checking in on a teammate or reconnecting with someone you haven't seen in a while can lift your spirits, reaching out for therapy can make a real difference too. BetterHelp makes that first step easier by connecting you with a licensed therapist online from wherever you are. Therapy isn't just for when things are falling apart. It's about staying balanced and growing through tough seasons. BetterHelp matches you with a therapist who fits your needs, and you can switch anytime if it's not the right match. Over 5 million people have used BetterHelp, and with 30,000 therapists available, finding support is really just a few clicks away. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it simple to take that first step. And our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Because taking that step forward just might leave you wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? All right, everybody, welcome back to Crossover Thursday. Locked On Giants, Locked On Packers. He's Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers. I'm Patricia Traina of Locked On Giants. And don't forget, folks, check out the Locked On Giants and the Locked On Packers squad shows. two separate shows,
Yep.
obviously. They run twice a week. I think the Packers runs on Wednesday, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken, and of course after the game, and of course the Giants. We run ours on Thursday afternoons, 1:00. Mark Collins, Jay Berman, and myself, and of course after the game. So we hope you will check those out as well. All right. Giants Packers Sunday, 1:00 MetLife Stadium. Peter, what's the keys to the game here?
Protect Jordan Love. The offensive line for the Packers has not been stellar this year. It's been below the standard that we are used to seeing in Green Bay, to be sure. Injuries have played a role in that as well. Their Elton Jenkins, their center, who they moved from guard, who's a Pro Bowl guard, they moved to center this year. That has not worked out as well as they would have hoped. And so I'm not sure that the Sean Ryan replacement is that big a downgrade. But Sean Ryan had been replaced by Jordan Morgan at right guard. So we are talking about a backup player and someone who has not been a center full time against Dexter Lawrence. Like that could certainly be a problem. But Rasheed Walker, Zach Tom, like they've seen Kayvon Thibodeau. They've seen Brian Burns. Like they know what it's like to play against those kinds of guys. You have to give Jordan Love time because if you keep him clean, he has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL when he's not pressured. And that for the Packers, that means creating some play action opportunities, some heavy protection opportunities. The Packers went to some 6th offensive lineman looks on Monday to create some play action shots. I think you're going to see that in this game too. Hey, we know your run defense stinks. Here's 6 offensive line to make sure it stinks, right? And so, like, I think you're going to see that stuff too. If they can protect Jordan Love, there are enough holes in this secondary to me that they're going to be able to run the ball. Can you then play action off it and create the shot plays down the field, or even just some intermediate stuff would be really nice from this offense. That's the key to me as we move forward here. What do you see for the Giants side?
They better beef up that run defense. That has been a problem week after week after week. Giants have some injuries now on that side and the front 7. Bobby Okereke, the inside linebacker, shoulder issue. They've already lost Darius Muaso. They've lost Micah McFadden. Both of them.
Is Okereke not going to play?
I'm sorry?
Is Okereke not going to play? Do we not know at this point?
We don't know at this point, but he's on the injury report with a shoulder issue. All right. So that's a concern, obviously.
Need your shoulder to tackle, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Dexter Lawrence, hopefully he wakes up. I mean, he just hasn't been Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, what is the deal there?
I wonder about it, Pete, because, I look at the Giants defense and when they get into the fourth quarter, and I don't know if it's because they're on the field a lot or what, but
it could be.
They look gassed when we get to, later into the game. And that's a concern. And I wonder if that's not part of the issue, why that defense just collapses in the last 6-7 minutes of the fourth quarter. So, obviously
the Cardinals kind of do the same thing. It's weird when your offense is inconsistent. I guess it's not weird when your offense is inconsistent that in the fourth quarter, like when you've been on the field a bunch, it's going to happen. And we saw it. Like, can you just, we're 27 minutes in the show. I probably should have mentioned this sooner, but can you pinpoint what happened against the Bears? There's no way they should have lost that game on Sunday.
They couldn't get off the field. I mean, how many penalties were on defense? I mean, it's interesting. The defensive backs, you mentioned Deonte Banks. In practice, they have them working with oven mitts so that they're not grabby. It used to be.
No. When they have props for the corners, you're in deep trouble.
They used to have tennis balls taped to their hands. Now it's oven mitts. But it just seems like, they get the opponent where they want them, and somebody does something stupid, usually in the defensive backfield. And, the Giants, the last few weeks, they've been playing without Javon Holland, although Holland was back last week. They've been playing without Paulson Adebo. They went one game without Cordell Flott. So that defensive backfield, man, not only can they not hold the coverage to give the pass rush a chance to finish things off, but you throw in the fact that the run defense hasn't been good. And you just sit there and you pull your hair out and you say, how can this be? You got Dexter Lawrence up front, Rakeem Nunes-Roches, who's been playing alongside of him. He's banged up. He's got a toe injury. You've got Roy Robertson-Harris, who played pretty well last week. And it's just, and here's the other thing. If you're not able to stop the run, play a 4-man front. Why are you going with 2 or 3 guys? Play a 4-man front. Give yourself at least a fighting chance. Because you've got 2 or 3 guys against 5?
Yeah. It's tough. I was just looking up the numbers as you were talking. They are last in rush EPA in terms of EPA per rush, and it's not particularly close. Like the Giants and the Bengals are the two worst teams, and it's not close. And by success rate, they're third worst. So that means they're giving up some big plays in there too. It just, with Dexter Lawrence on the team, that should just not be. Like 2 years ago, Dexter Lawrence was. I was listening to podcasters I think are smart say he might be the best player, full stop, in the NFL. And that has just not been the case this year for whatever reason. And so if the Packers can run the ball and they can protect Jordan Love, I think they're going to win. But I also think this is the kind of game Jameis Winston is going to make interesting. And so this to me, the line when it was 7.5 I was like, I'm going to take the Giants on 7.5. This is a game where I think the Packers, it reminds me of the Bengals game, Patricia. And I don't know if you watched that one, but like the Packers were winning that whole game, but they never put it out of reach. And in the end, the Bengals made it just interesting enough. Like the game was never really in doubt, but at the end you go up and you're like, we should have blown that team out and didn't. I think that is how I'm going to feel at the end of this game. It's like the Packers probably should have blown that team out and they didn't. And until they do, I can't predict them doing it anymore. Like I've been loosey with the football too many times with this team to predict a blowout. This should be a game the Packers win 31-20. It should be that kind of game. And I can't predict that because they haven't done that to these teams. This feels to me like a 24-17 kind of game, but it's like it's 21-10 in the fourth quarter and it doesn't feel that close. The Giants get a touchdown to make it a one-score game. The Packers kick a field goal and then time runs out, something like that. Like that seems to me like this is where this is headed.
Oh, don't talk to me about kickers because the Giants just put Graham Gano on IR. I think it's going to be Younghoe Koo kicking this week, but who knows? They just added another guy, Ben Sauls, to the practice squad. So who knows?
Packers have kicking problems of their own, Patricia. So I'm with you there. I'm with you.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. All right, folks. That's going to do it for this edition of Crossover Thursday. Locked On Giants, Locked On Packers. Again, we thank you for spending part of your day with us here. And if you made us your first listen, we appreciate that as well. For your next listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler the Madman Rowland gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. For Peter Bukowski, I'm Patricia Traina. Thank you again, folks, for listening, and we'll see you on our respective shows tomorrow.